On a cold day in November 1874, a baby was born in a very large house in England. This house was called Blenheim Palace. It had more than 200 rooms, many servants, and long, quiet hallways. The baby's name was Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill. From the first day of his life, he was surrounded by history, tradition, and high expectations. But even in a big, beautiful palace, Winston often felt small, lost, and alone. His father was Lord Randolph Churchill. He was a famous politician. He was smart, serious, and very busy. His mother, Jenny Jerome, was from America. She was beautiful and full of life. People liked her charm and strong opinions. But she was always moving, attending events and social gatherings. Because of this, Winston did not spend much time with his parents. He did not feel close to them. The person who took care of Winston every day was a woman named Mrs. Everest. She was not a famous person. She was not powerful. But to Winston, she was everything. She fed him, played with him, and told him stories. She listened when he was scared. She smiled when he had questions. She made him feel safe and loved. Many years later, Winston still remembered her with great love. When Winston started school, he found it very hard. He did not like math. He found reading and writing difficult. The letters on the page did not make sense to him. Teachers thought he was lazy. Some thought he was not very smart. He was often punished for not listening or for talking too much. But the truth was simple. Winston was not a bad student. He was just a different kind of learner. He was full of questions. He wanted to understand the why behind everything. One day, when he was very young, Winston found a quiet place in the palace library. He sat on the floor with a big book in his hands. It was a story about ancient Rome. He read about brave soldiers, great battles, and strong leaders. The more he read, the more he dreamed. In that moment, something inside him changed. He realized that words were powerful. They could make people listen, learn, and even fight for something important. He decided that one day, he wanted to use words like that too. Even though school stayed difficult, Winston began to love reading stories about history. He liked speeches and bold ideas. He often read out loud in his room, practicing how to speak with power. He tried to sound like the heroes he read about. This was not something his teachers saw. But inside Winston, a fire had started. Later, Winston was sent to a strict boarding school. The school was cold, and the rules were hard. The other boys did not always understand him. He still struggled with schoolwork. But now, he had something special, a dream. He believed that one day he would do something important. He believed that his voice, even if small now, could one day become strong. He started to write little speeches for himself. He made up stories and talked to himself as if he were standing in front of a crowd. He was not the best student in class, but he was learning in his own way. He learned how to speak with feeling. He learned how to tell stories that mattered, and most of all, he learned to believe in himself. Winston's childhood was not easy. He often felt left out, misunderstood, and unseen. But even in those dark times, he kept thinking, reading, and imagining. He held on to one simple truth, that he could make his life matter through the power of words. That belief stayed with him for the rest of his life. From a curious boy in a big palace to a man with great ideas, Winston Churchill's journey had just begun. And though no one knew it yet, the boy who sat alone in the library would one day speak to millions, giving them hope when they needed it most. As Winston Churchill grew older, his dreams also grew. He still loved books and stories, but now he wanted to live a big story of his own. He did not want to sit and watch. He wanted to go out into the world, to do brave things, and to learn through action. When he was old enough, he decided to become a soldier. He joined the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. The training was hard, but Winston tried his best. He wanted to prove that he could be strong, not just with his body, but with his mind and heart. After finishing military school, Winston became an officer in the British Army. He was sent to faraway places like India and Sudan. These places were very different from England. The weather was hot, the people were new, and the world felt large and full of mystery. Winston spent many hours riding horses, training with other soldiers, and writing letters to his mother. In these letters, he asked deep questions about war, leadership, and the meaning of life. He also read many books. He never stopped learning, even while wearing a uniform. But Winston wanted more than just training. He wanted to see real events. He wanted to be where history was happening. So he did something special. He became both a soldier and a writer. He started writing for newspapers. He used his words to tell people back home what war was really like. He wrote about the sights, the sounds, the fear, and the courage. People loved reading his reports. They said he made the war come alive with his stories. In 1899, a war broke out in South Africa. It was called the Boer War. Winston went there as a reporter. One day he was traveling on an armored train. Suddenly the train was attacked by the enemy. Bullets flew, metal screamed. The train crashed. It was a moment full of fear and noise, but Winston did not freeze. He helped lead soldiers to safety. He helped the wounded. He tried to stay calm and smart. But in the end, he was captured. Now, Winston was a prisoner. He was locked in a small room in the city of Pretoria. Many people would have waited quietly, hoping to be released. But not Winston. He started planning how to escape. It was not easy. There were guards everywhere. The walls were high, but Winston believed he could do it. He watched, waited, and picked the right moment. One night, when the guards were distracted, he climbed over the wall. He ran into the dark, with no map, no food, and no friends. His escape was full of danger. He had to hide during the day and walk at night. He used the stars to find his way. He was tired, hungry, and scared, but he never gave up. After walking for days, he finally found a safe place. A kind family helped him. They gave him food and a place to rest. Then, they helped him reach Portuguese territory, which was not part of the war. Winston was free. His escape became big news in England. People were amazed. The young man who once struggled in school was now a hero. He had shown courage, quick thinking, and strong will. But Winston did not boast. He said he was just doing what he believed was right. That moment changed Winston's life. He was no longer just the son of a politician. He was now a man who had faced real danger and survived. He had seen war with his own eyes. He had learned how hard and painful it could be. But he had also learned something about himself. He could be brave. He could lead. He could make choices in hard moments. Winston Churchill chose courage, not comfort. He chose action, not fear. And though he was still young, the world had started to see him not just as a curious boy or a smart writer, but as a man who could shape the future. His journey was only beginning. Many years after his escape in South Africa, Winston Churchill became one of the most important leaders in British history. He had learned many things as a young man, about courage, about fear, and about using words to tell the truth. These lessons helped him later when he became the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom during a very dark time. In 1940, a terrible war was happening in Europe. Nazi Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, had already attacked many countries. France was falling, and people were afraid that Britain would be next. The people needed a strong leader, someone they could trust. That person was Winston Churchill. On May 10th, 1940, he became Prime Minister. It was one of the hardest jobs in the world. Winston knew that the country was in danger, but he also knew something very powerful. Words can give people strength. Just like the books and speeches he had read as a boy, he now had to speak to the people. He had to help them feel brave, even when things were scary. On his first day as Prime Minister, Winston gave a short but strong speech. He said, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat." These words were simple but full of meaning. He was honest. He did not promise an easy time, but he promised to fight and never give up. During the war, Winston gave many speeches. He spoke on the radio. He spoke in Parliament. He spoke in small rooms and large halls. His voice was deep and full of emotion. People stopped what they were doing to listen. Families gathered around the radio. Soldiers listened in faraway lands. His words gave hope when people had none. He made them believe they could win. One of his most famous speeches came after the rescue of soldiers from Dunkirk. Thousands of British and French soldiers had escaped from the beaches of France. Many boats, big and small, had helped them come home, but the war was still going on. In his speech, Winston said, "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall never surrender." These words helped the people feel strong. They were not just words, they were a promise. Winston was not only a speaker, he also worked hard every day. He met with generals, planned battles, and made big decisions. He visited cities that had been bombed. He walked with the people, shook their hands, and looked them in the eyes. He wanted them to know they were not alone. At home, his wife Clementine stood by him. She was quiet but strong. She gave him advice, supported him when he felt tired, and reminded him why he had to keep going. Their love helped Winston stay brave during very hard times. Sometimes Winston stayed up very late, writing speeches by himself. He drank tea and read books for inspiration. One night, he looked at an old speech by Abraham Lincoln. He underlined a sentence and whispered to himself, "Yes, words can carry people forward." He knew that in war, guns were important, but words could save hearts. As the war went on, Winston worked day and night. He helped bring together many countries to fight against Hitler. He met with leaders like Franklin Roosevelt from the United States and Joseph Stalin from the Soviet Union. Together, they made plans to stop the war and bring peace. In 1945, the war in Europe finally ended. People danced in the streets. They cheered Winston's name. He had helped save his country, not only with plans and actions, but with the power of words. He had spoken to a nation, and the world had listened. Winston Churchill taught us that true leadership is not about being perfect. It is about being honest, brave, and never giving up. He showed us that even when times are hard, one voice can make a difference. The curious boy who once read books in a quiet library had become the man who gave hope to millions. His story reminds us that words, when used with truth and courage, can change the world. Winston Churchill's life was not easy, but it was full of meaning. From the beginning, he was a curious boy who asked many questions. He did not do well in school at first. Some teachers thought he was slow, but Winston never gave up. He loved reading. He loved history, and he believed in the power of words. As he grew older, Winston became a soldier. He traveled to faraway countries. He saw war and danger. He even escaped from a prison in South Africa. That moment showed his strong will and courage. He proved that real strength comes from never losing hope, even in hard times. Later, Winston became a leader. During World War II, when Britain was in great danger, he became the Prime Minister. He spoke to the people with truth and power. His voice gave people courage. His words helped a nation stay strong during fear and darkness. He showed that a leader does not always have all the answers, but a leader never stops trying. Winston Churchill used his words, his actions, and his heart to help his country. He was not perfect. He made mistakes, but he always tried to do what he believed was right. His story teaches us something very important. The lesson we learn from Winston's life is this: you do not have to be the best at everything. You just need to believe in yourself, keep learning, and never give up. In today's world, many people feel lost or afraid. Sometimes life is hard, but like Winston, we can choose courage. We can speak with honesty. We can keep going, even when things seem impossible. And we can help others through our words and actions. If you listen to this story until the end, congratulations. You have just improved your English listening and understanding. Great job. You followed a real story, learned new words, and felt strong emotions in English. Now let's test your memory with a fun question. What helped Winston Churchill become strong in his childhood? A. His dog, who taught him to read. B. Mrs. Everest, his nanny, who gave him love and support. Comment your answer below, A or B. We can't wait to see what you remember. If you enjoyed this story and want more simple, powerful stories to help you learn English, please subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us energy to make more great content. Also, if you want to help us grow and keep creating free content, please consider donating. In the beginning, it's very hard for us to produce high-quality English learning stories without support. But we do it with love, because we want to help you learn. Thank you for learning with us. Let's grow together, one story at a time.